Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
From country to country, yeah, we gotta work together. We are leaders now, aiming high for the better. Together, to make our nations greater, while sharing to empower. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. With your lead, let your dream be a reality. With your lead, let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people with ability. Here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need, together transform our community as we see light and a brighter future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana kutoka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini?
YouLead.
Vijana wote.
I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. With your lead, let your dream be a reality. With your lead, let your dream be a reality.
The prevailing global context has provided valuable lessons and amplified the need for visionary leadership across the globe.
COVID-19 pandemic has brought in a new challenge to the youth. I think, as we all know, youth unemployment is a major challenge that has been facing the globe over the last few years. However, during this pandemic, it wasn't.
Through it all, there's something special about the resilience of Africa's young people. The creativity, the will to overcome adversity, which is inherent in humankind, but it shines even brighter in Africa.
From the 23rd to the 27th of November, YouLead Summit will be held under the theme Development is People. This theme echoes the words of the founding father of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who stated that any form of meaningful and sustainable development has to be people-centered. Since 2017, YouLead Summit has been working to unlock youth leadership potential for a prosperous East Africa and the region.
As a bank, our purpose is Uganda is our home and we drive her growth. We cannot say that as a bank we drive her growth without helping the biggest population in this country.
The overall vision of ELF is to have dignified societies across Africa. And that is exactly what YouLead was also doing, that they wanted to enhance the youth voice in the East African region.
As National Youth Council Kenya, we believe and we will continuously champion for engagements, meaningful engagement of young people, the Kenyan, the East African, and the African youth for a sustainably empowered youth.
Partnerships are very important within this YouLead space, and not only for being a young person, but within our organization, because as young people, we realize we cannot move to the next step by ourselves. We need to work together in order for us to achieve our vision, in order for us to empower each other.
Support YouLead in grassroots mobilization, grassroots convening and inventing of spaces for young people to actually have their voices amplified.
Investing in people is one of the most assured ways of realizing a country's development. We're therefore coming together this November, not only to talk, but to craft practical solutions for the prosperity and development of African youth.
YouLead Summit 2020, which is convening for the 4th edition, will be a platform for the East African community, old and young, experienced and novice, to meet, interact, and discuss developmental issues without prejudice. The summit is hosted by MS Training Center for Development Cooperation and the East African Community in Arusha, and is co-owned and supported by the YouLead Consortium of state and non-state partners across all the 6 East African Community member states and beyond, in the spirit of United Nations Agenda 2030, Leaving No One Behind, and the African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want.
YouLead Summit 2020 will be brought closer to you. We're making it possible for everyone to participate from anywhere. With qualified delegates, speakers, and mentors forming a limited physical audience under COVID-19 prevention standard operating procedures. The first setup will be the Regional Command Center, where sessions will be held at the EAC headquarters in Arusha, Tanzania.
Day 1 will be dedicated for the Under 40 Political Leaders Forum, Reinventing Leadership for East African Millennials. Day 2 will be the East African Youth Forum on Peace, Youth at the Center of Peace Building and Conflict Prevention. Day 3 will be the Under 40 Business Leaders Forum, Accelerating Economic Opportunities and Decent Work for Youth, which will be crowned by the Youth Enterprise Awards Gala Night Dinner. Day 4 will be the Post-Summit Agenda, and Day 5 will be the East Africa Youth Parliament, popularly known as the Vijana Assembly. These platforms will enable 10,000 delegates to participate, network, and engage in real time through audio and video chats, as well as interact with key partners and organizations supporting youth development in East Africa and beyond.
I personally look forward to the Under 40 Business Leaders Forum.
Karibuni and all the nice ones to the YouLead Summit 2020.
We therefore invite you to participate in YouLead 20 by either applying to become a delegate or partnering with us to prepare for the summit and implement the outcomes. To apply as a delegate, simply visit www.youleadsummit.org and send in your application. To partner with us, you can contribute towards the overall budget, or you can support by adopting a booth, support a thematic day of the summit, or support a selected or nominated delegate to participate in the summit.
I personally look forward for the Political Leaders Forum Under 40.
Welcome to YouLead 20.
I want to welcome you all to YouLead Summit 20. Yay!
With your lead, let your dream be a reality.
Thank you very much, Beatrice, for that. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much, Beatrice, for that. We appreciate the support you're offering to this process. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon to all our guests in this conversation, and welcome aboard the official launch of the East Africa Youth Peace Network. We are so happy and honored to have you here. Before we start, I just need to go through a bit of housekeeping notes so that we make sure that we have a smooth flowing meeting. For most of the conversation, we're going to be having people speaking, and it would be nice if the rest of us mute our microphones so that we do not interfere with the flow of the conversation. So if you're not on the floor, if you're not the one speaking, kindly mute your microphone. And this would be a good time to start muting your microphones. So please, everyone whose microphone is on, I request you to kindly mute at this moment and only unmute when you're requested to speak. Secondly, we have a number of guests on this platform who are going to be hosting for conversations. And we hope that we're going to have a rich conversation where we have a proper exchange to plan how we're going to collaborate with them in the setting up of this East Africa Youth Peace Network. But like I said, we are very happy to have you here. And we hope that you'll find value in being a part of this network and that we move forward in a proper collaborative manner. Having said that, I have people who are supporting me in this conversation. We have Franklin, who's hosting this conversation, And then we have Beatrice Marandu and Kazeneza Yuget, who are co-hosting and are going to be answering your questions in the chat room in case of any questions or any clarifications, anything you need to know, or if you're struggling with your connection or something, then they'll be able to respond to you in the chat room. Or if there's anything you need from the organizers of this launch. We also have Sebastian Ivan, who is supporting us with social media. There is someone who still has not muted the microphone, even after I requested. So like I said, we have Sebastian who's supporting us with social media as well. And so together with this team, we are going to be able to roll out the agenda of the day. In brief, we are coming together to launch the East Africa Youth Peace Network, a network that we have been discussing for a very long time. In our YouLead Summit last year, the 2020 summit that you have just watched about in the videos that were played at the beginning of this broadcast, you notice that we have been mentioning YouLead Summit 2020, and one of the forums that we held during the YouLead Summit 2020 as a recommendation from the youth of East Africa is the East Africa Youth Peace Forum. During this forum, some recommendations were made. South Sudan took leadership of that platform, and the rest of us were participating virtually on the platform. And one of the biggest recommendations that came up was that we need to set up an East Africa Community Youth Peace Network that would consolidate the efforts of young people on peace, matters of peace and security, and particularly bring together the actors so that they can be able to encourage each other, share best practices, as well as support each other's work where possible. As part of the priorities for the year 2021, we then took up the agenda of setting up the East Africa Community Youth Peace Network. And as part of even this process, because we collaborate very closely with a number of partners within the region, including the East Africa Community, and the East Africa Community actually has a memorandum of understanding with MSTCDC, the home of YouLead. We agreed that we also have to complement each other's processes, and the East Africa Community is currently in the process of putting together frameworks for peace and security within the region, and you shall hear more about this in the presentations to come. So we figured that we needed to bring on board all actors who were already doing something on peace and security within the region. So the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform, that is a part of the EAC, was also brought on board, and they have representation within the steering committee and within the platform itself. So a number of processes have actually led us to where we are today. And as a response to those processes, we were required to, one, first of all, conceptualize the platform. Number two, to develop a framework of engagement for the platform. Number three, to conduct elections in order for us to get a steering committee that is going to be leading the East Africa Community Peace Network. And we successfully managed to hold all those activities in between the month of April and May. We now have a properly functioning steering committee that we're going to be meeting in the course of the program. And they have actually played quite an instrumental role in putting together our event for today. And then, of course, we have also put together a draft framework of engagement, which shall be shared in this meeting, and we shall all know, what this draft framework says. But before I go into any further detail, I think this would be a good time to invite the speaker who shall be giving us the welcoming remarks. This is none other than Ms. Makena Mubobia, who's the Executive Director at MSTCDC, and is also the leader of all the work that we're doing with YouLead at the center. And she's going to be providing to us the welcoming remarks and probably give us insights on where she would really love to see us going with this East Africa Community Youth Peace Network. Ms. McKenna, if you're ready, the floor is yours. We are very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Stella. And as usual, when you're doing the moderating, I just get very excited because I keep saying, oh, I wish I can be like Stella. So I'm kind of learning how to be a good moderator, and I'm looking at a leader for today, not for tomorrow. Thank you for that very grounded introduction. And I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the many that have connected from different parts of the region. And more so to our partner, the East Africa community, I say thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to having more partners come on board, because I think as MSTCDC, the reason we host young people and YouLead for that purpose is the future is with you. And when I say with you is, Stella, you can still tell I'm youth, but I'm very youthful, because I know it's time for inclusion for the youth. And I've always said that not just within the region, Africa, and the global, when we look at statistics and young people, we must be asking the hard questions. So then my welcome speech and my introduction will be touching on where I see the program going and where I think we should be and the reasons to why. And because I'm talking to a very intelligent group of young people, and first to say congratulations for thinking about young people and peace. Because definitely without peace, then there's nothing else that really young people can enjoy. But I just wanted to say 3 things that I think are so critical for this forum is always to remember that young people need to be brought on board as the solution owners, not the problem. And why I'm saying that is because if I see particularly Africa, it's unfortunate because the youth have in a way really been misused, and particularly by politicians, where we see youth are the people that are put in the front line to disrupt peace, and particularly during the political times. When we look at youth and conflict, youth are so much affected by conflict, yet they are missing out from the decision-making table. They are missing out from the negotiations table. They are missing out from the control of resources, from the control of power. They are missing out as a very critical group. And so I see that in the direction to take is where young people then are becoming actually the peace negotiators. They are becoming the solution in terms of conflict. They are becoming the facilitators of peace talks. They are becoming at the decision-making tables where peace discussions are taking place. So when we talk about that in 25 or not, that the bigger question is, where is the youth? Where is the youth? And not just numbers, but in terms of decision-making, be it in terms of the solutions themselves. If you look at the framework, what % of youth is going to be? So for me, it's not about youth as numbers, but is youth in decision-making, youth in resource allocation, youth in solution. And I think that's the direction to go. I looked at the framework and I'm so happy because then it's gonna address this. And then how then do we also take diversity? How do we then talk about youth in conflict areas? Because we can take any country in East Africa. And even if I started with DRC or somewhere else, where is the youth when it comes now to negotiating? Because youth already know the community structures, and then they should be actually the solution makers. And this is why, Stella, I'm saying what I'm throwing to you today is that this is actually a very unique forum, a peace forum that is by the youth for the youth to push the government towards implementing, because if we look at most of the instruments we have, yes, youth is mentioned, but then again, like I've always said, it is unfortunate because the implementation of the frameworks then is where the problem comes. So can we then unlock the frameworks? Can we then move to the implementation? Can we then move to the monitoring? Can we move then to putting policy papers and case studies on the globe so that people can see the difference between this forum and any other that is there? Because then we are looking at results, we are looking at solutions. So if I'm saying in terms of the future is let this be a unique solution peace forum that we spread ourselves from the region to Africa. How do we then link with the EU and become the real implementers of the peace? If one country was in trouble, how do we then network together as the young people, as the youth forum, to ensure that even we don't get to that conflict? How do we then even use this forum to prevent? Because I would want to see a future where we do early warning and we are able to prevent rather than now dealing with the peace itself or the conflict. So those are the things that really I would think about, Stella. I would think about a forum that is grateful that we shall look back and say we actually prevented conflict in the following zones. Because why? We have a framework and mechanisms that are working for us, because the mechanisms are held by the young people, led by the young people, solutions by the young people, and therefore resources. Then when it comes to resourcing, then we must be able to negotiate with the government for resourcing the implementation of those mechanisms and resolutions by the young people for the young people. And then the last bit I would want to talk about, Stella and the team, is then how do we look at the intergenerational shift in terms of the peace discussions, intergeneration shift in terms of power, in terms of the resources, in terms of the people. How do we do that? Because that must be put at the table. And because this is so critical, today we are talking about intergenerational discussions. We are making the youth, how do we have a seamless process that recognizes this, that the intergenerational shift must take place. And we are not negotiating about it. We are saying, yes, it must take place, but how does it take place? So there are all the instruments and the frameworks, and we do hope that this is going to be one of the very successful, impactful forum for peace, for young people, by the people, and we shall look back and say, yes, the legacy is here for us, and to say, Africa has led the way. So how do we influence the Arab region in terms of the discussions that we have? So the other bit is also, what are we learning? How are we learning? How are we going to make sure that we learn from North Africa or from South America or others, to make sure that young people are talking to each other? How do we become a networked global world of the young people that are peacemakers, are peace builders, are the courageous heroes that are saying this is what is happening, so that, Stella, you can be flown from wherever you are to be a peace champion in Southern America, for example. So I'm talking about the future in terms of the world becoming a small global where the young people are actually leading and taking place. So let us learn, let us share, and then let us lead. So I want to say this is a beautiful day. We shall not forget it. It goes to the history books to say we launched this forum today. And I just want to wish everybody all the best and thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you to listen to the young people and to make sure that young people have the space to do what is necessary for the world to be a better place. No, not just because you cannot talk about youth and economy, you cannot talk about youth and football, youth and arts if there's no peace. So thank you very much, and I wish you a very, very happy discussion. Asanteni sana, karibuni.
Thank you very, very much, McKenna. Before you leave, I know you have a very busy schedule this afternoon. I think it will be important for me to bring it to your attention that we are hosting some very powerful guests here today.
Yes.
We have a very strong panel of young people who are actually going to be speaking before the government. So as you have said, indeed, governments will be listening to young people, and then there will be a government platform where we shall be collaborating and having a conversation on how we can ensure that we are complementing each other's work. And we are also hosting here our chief guest, who is His Excellency Ambassador Fred Gateretse, the head of Conflict Prevention and Early Warning, Peace and Security Department at the African Union Commission. So I thought I should just bring this to your attention so that you will welcome our guests as you go.
Thank you, Stella. To our guests, all protocols observed, I just want to say thank you so much, because I know sometimes we are too busy. But I just want to say to every guest in the forum today, and particularly the chief guest, thank you so much, because the youth need to be heard. The youth need to be given the space. The youth need to be given the resources. They need to be given the space, and they have what it takes. So they need to learn from you, and they need to learn from us. And youth, don't take it for granted that you have these very high-powered people on the forum. Learn from them, run with them, and put them under pressure to make sure that whatever solutions you have, then we give you the support. Thank you so much, guest speakers, and I'm sure you're going to have a lovely interactive session. I can see the panel, and I think this is the right time. Thanks, Tara, for that, and asantini sana, and thanks once again.
Thank you so much, Ms. McKenna. And every time we speak, I'm motivated on how far we are going to go with the agenda of youth and pushing it. And especially because of how passionate you are about this matter and how you speak quite eloquently about the direction that youth should take. Indeed, you continue to be youth and to inspire us to do our best to ensure that we are putting youth at the best place in the society and actually having our best foot forward. Thank you so much. That was our executive director at MSTCDC, making the welcoming remarks. And without much further ado, I'm going to invite Gisa Robert, who is going to take over the next part of the program to be able to introduce the next panel and run the conversation. But as he comes in, allow me to recognize the presence of a number of guests who I've already seen in the meeting room. I recognize the presence of Mr. Didicus Kaguta, a peace and security expert from the EAC. You will be hearing a lot from him later in the conversation. I also recognize the presence of our guests from the countries. We have Ms. Truphena, who's already present, will be introduced shortly. We have representatives of the government of Rwanda who are present with us. Allow me to note Ndatimana Christian from the National Youth Council, and Solange from the Ministry of Youth Affairs in Rwanda. And I will continue to recognize our guests as they come in, because we were expecting quite a number of them. But as Gisa takes up the floor, he's going to introduce part of the panel and therefore recognize a number of other guests on my behalf. Gisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stella. Greetings, everyone. I'm Gisa Robert. I work at iPeace, Initiatives for Peace and Human Rights in Rwanda. The next panel will be on the role of youth in peace and security, and we'll be having a conversation with people from organizations that work with youth in peace and security within East Africa. Allow me to introduce the panelists. On the panel, we have someone who has just been recognized by Stella, Mr. Kaguta Didicus, who is a peace and security expert at the East African community. Mr. Kaguta is also the EAC coordinator at African Peace and Security Architecture, which is a program that supports youth, women in peace and security, conflict prevention and resolution, children in armed conflicts, as well as strategic security issues. We also have Dr. Truphena Mukuna, who is the executive director at Organization for Social Science Research in Eastern and Southern Africa, OSSREA. She is a senior executive with a strong background in multidisciplinary social science research and extensive hands-on experience, and as well as technical expertise on issues related to education, research, analysis, training, capacity building, and peace and security, among others. We also have Mr. Marwal Bokil, who is the South Sudanese peace builder. He is the co-founder of the Africa Youth Action Network, and is a peace building expert who will share with us more from his expertise. We also have Mrs. Ruth Atim, who is a graduate of Information and Communications Technology from Gulu University. She has been a journalist for some time, with a career that started after joining university, where she's worked as a news anchor and editor, as well as a reporter in many Gulu-based radio stations. She's also the co-founder of the Gender Initiative Uganda, and she will be telling us about digital safety and digital literacy, which is one of the services that Gender Initiative Uganda offers. Lastly, we also have Mr. Jamal Abdalla, who is a lawyer and security conflict practitioner working across communities in Kenya. Mr. Jamal sees himself as a true rainmaker who brings a unique vision to his work. He has experience in analyzing, conducting, and presenting research findings, experience drawn from his diverse career in fields such as education, governance, media, mentorship, and entrepreneurship. Mr. Jamal will tell us more on countering extremist violence. So those are the panelists we have in this panel. And so far, I think we don't have Malwal yet, but the other panelists are online. So I'll just go ahead and start with Mrs. Ruth Atim. She's been having some work on digital literacy and digital safety. And Mrs. Ruth, the digital world, especially social media, has been a ground for different kinds of harassment and abuse. What role should youth play to combat online abuse and contribute to digital safety?
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I kept dropping off. I've just rejoined. Thank you so much. The youth have, okay, just to take you back a bit, the youth globally, we have about 2.5 billion youth. I think that's the number the statistics that will be, that we will have reached by 2025. And I believe we have a huge impact. When we work hard, the youth will really have something so impactful to create. And then also looking at the digital safety space, digital security space, the youth, the biggest contributing factor that the youth have to do at the moment is to, be the key players in ensuring that there is an online space for everyone. The youth are looked at as people who drive driving factors for unrest. So there are some of these contagious stereotypes that associate young people with violence. For example, cyberbullying, online harassment, organized transactional crime, and extremist violence. So and most of the overarching, consequence of these negative stereotypes is what has contributed to the marginalization, and stigmatization of youth by, framing these young people as a problem to be solved and a threat to be contained. And this, in the long run, it kills. It limits, it reduces the self-esteem of this youth and their ability to participate in creating an environment that promotes peace and security. So we have to set up pragmatic responses towards security and ensuring that we have an environment where young people, can participate fully. And also this sort of explains the frustration of young people. Across the globe, there are very many extraordinary young people who are creatively, seeking for ways to prevent violence and consolidate peace. However, they are frustrated by the tendencies in their different government systems, other international actors that treat the youth, like I said in the beginning, as a problem to be solved, rather than partners for peace. So until we address the problem of young people's exclusion in peace building, we will not benefit from their contribution to this strong and ongoing sense of injustice. So this must be addressed in order to support and benefit from the young people's contributors to peace, and also realize the potential of the 1.8 billion young people. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruth, for that insight. I would like to ask participants to, if you have a question, please stick to it. We'll have some minutes to ask questions, and please keep your mics muted. Now let me go to Mr. Didicus Kaguta. And the EAC as an institution, first of all, I commend the work that the EAC has been doing with the youth for some time now. But now being specific on peace and security, Mr. Kaguta, can you tell us what the EAC has been doing in recent years to promote youth participation in peace and security within the EAC member countries? Mr. Kaguta, are you with us? Okay, I think we're having a technical error, issue with Mr. Kaguta. So let me now go and have a conversation with Dr. Truphena Mukuna, who is with us. Okay, yeah, I think for Kaguta, we still have an issue. Yes, Dr. Truphena, we've seen that most peace and security interventions targeting youth, they often prioritize young men, leaving young women out. And we are wondering, how can the narrative of taking young women simply as victims rather than actors of peace and security change? How can we now include young women in the and promote their participation in peace and security?
Thank you very much, Giza, and thank you, the organizers of this great meeting. I am wishing all of you success. It is true that peace and security has mainly targeted the men and misconstrued. They have felt that women are victims. In most cases, they are victims. They are passive. They do not even know what is happening. And yet, the truth of the matter is that is not what they are. In researches that have been conducted in Africa and even in Asia, we have seen that both the young men and women are involved in violence. However, the truth of the matter is only a few choose to fight. The women have been involved, also play the same roles. Nowadays, we have seen for the cases of violence that of terrorism that we saw in Kenya, we have seen homegrown terrorism, and women have played a leading role, like during the Westgate attack. Women played, a woman played a leading role. The Dusit attack, we have also seen women. In a research which we did recently on youth inclusive mechanisms in preventing and countering violent extremism, there was evidence that women push men into violence. They ask them, what kind of man are you? You are supposed to be providing. So masculinity and feminism come in, and because of the social norms that we have, and they push men into violent extremism or generally into conflict. We have seen cases whereby women confessed to us that they prepare their daughters to be Al-Shabaab brides. They prepare, the women in Uganda told us that they were prepared by older women and handed over to the soldiers during the LRA abduction cases. They were handed over to the men by older women. So that way, we cannot say that women are just victims and they are victims and all that. Now, what we should do about this is we need to engender peace building. We need to engender peace building programs. The prevention of countering violent extremism or general conflicts should be engendered. We should mainstream gender. And where we are mainstreaming gender, it means that we are taking cognizance of both of these factors, that both young men and women have the same issues that they are faced with in the various contexts where they are, and they drive them into violent extremism. Because when you look at the pull and the push factors, both the men and women, they talked about the same drivers, but all of them do not have jobs. So if somebody offers them a job, then they feel, yeah, I should follow them and join. Or if we have politicians who are offering them money to go into to heckle somebody or something, all of them have the same hungers, and therefore they join them. We should engender peace building programs so that they take care of both the young men and women.
Thank you so much, Dr. Truphena, for your insights. And on the panel, we have with us Mr. Jamal Abdalla.
Hello, everyone. Well, I must say, with what has been discussed. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. From what it's been discussed in terms of the role of youth on peace and security in East Africa, I must say, the experience is all about the mistakes that we have been doing in the continent, where we call experience. And by so saying, I mean, at Wasafiri, we've been able to do a number of research which has informed this kind of learning, in which we've also learned that extremely small or weak social networks as experienced, for example, by orphans or ex-gang members, seem to facilitate radicalization and recruitment, where recruiters are able to capitalize on the failure of an individual social network to provide adequate emotional, financial, and economical support, and also to utilize on VE networks so that they can fill the gaps. Through our research, we've been able to draw this kind of learning into four or five categories, in which informs us on the role of youth in terms of peace and security, where lack of social networks and social capital, by this we mean having role models within the community, being aware that there are government offices or officers who can actually support them in some way, lack of skills and expertise in terms of opportunities within that particular area, and also lack of urgency, as well as lack of community belonging. These are the reasons as to why a young individual will be more interested in joining gangs or radical groups like Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, so on and so forth. And by so saying, through this particular work that we've been doing, we've been able to create something in terms of a platform that we call CLRA, that is Community-Led Research Approach, which actually concentrates by step-by-step kind of guidance on how community can lead their own individual through research work, in which can inform them so that they can attain all that I've mentioned in terms of social networks, build on the sense of urgency, the lack of skills and expertise and the opportunities that I didn't mention, and also apply community belonging. Most of the time you'll hear psychologists who say you have the answers. So in going about this role and opportunities of this particular youth, they are the ones who actually have the answers. But our role also within this kind of conversation is also to help this particular youth who are at risk to realize these opportunities within the areas that they are in. And by so saying, this is to determine their own development priorities and also to respond to unwanted development projects where we have been able to be keen in the practical tips, perhaps applying tools and activities that this particular community-led research will help for this particular community or setup groups. This system actually is more targeted towards maskanis. Maskanis are unregistered platforms where youth sit in, where they can discuss their issues, they can discuss politics, influence each other in one way or the other, where we have an understanding that through this kind of engagement, youth only have one particular approach towards this. Who do they trust most? Is it their mother? Is it their father? Is it their best friend? Or who is this particular individual? We've learned that through their peer-to-peer engagement and by friend and family also means something else to this youth within these particular areas. So all we have to do is make the unfamiliar familiar through different kind of strategies, what we call ethnographic approach of research, where you have to you see, for instance, in Africa, we have beautiful villages, beautiful areas, good climate, but you cannot realize this if you are filled with a lot of trouble. So all this particular research aims at doing is to make this particular youth at risk living in this area to be able to realize the beauty within their own area, to become either patriotic, understand these particular opportunities within this area. And how do you do that? Is by applying a number of questions and managing the use of experience, which has made it possible to appreciate these complex issues like radicalization and terrorism, for instance, within a particular community. And to build this kind of resilience within this particular niche of an issue, because you'll only get that such kind of problems are just with a number of youth within this particular space. So there's need to have an attachment to these people that the youth trust most, and also to include referral systems and networks. And by these referrals, we mean not only economical referrals, where you give them jobs or opportunities, but also referrals that are going to work with this particular youth at risk throughout this process. And by engaging them, to make them feel that their voice is actually recognized within this particular space. And these are the gaps in which recruiters or to radicalization or whatever have been using to fill the gap and actually be able to win this youth at risk into doing what they set, to do. So in accessing these particular risk individuals, there's need to identify champions within the community who are influential. And by influential, I don't mean the paupers, the bourgeois or the elites within a community, but the simple most young individual within this particular community that is passionate about this area, that they listen to, that they respect. Even amongst a particular gang, if there's always an alpha within that gang, there's a reason why these young people trust him and they believe in him. So there's need actually to work with this particular youth. And the cool thing about CLRA is that it breaks the norm and helps these particular researchers who are at-risk individuals to realize that there is a need to work closely with everyone despite the power dynamics and class, or to address particular issues at hand, because youth cannot go to the chief's office just to understand what is government offering for us, you know, in this area. They're scared about reaching out to this particular office or institution. And it is because of a lot of perceptions, which might be true or not, but it's just for us, or the youth as well, to be able to realize the opportunities within them so that they can face the issue of radicalization at hand and also be able to solve it in terms of building their resilience. I must say the purpose of this kind of work basically is more so to involve and engage these individuals. But we can only do this if the family setup is also drained in a manner that they cannot approach. There is need to have a conversation with these youth so that they can be able to take part in this particular issue of security through stabilizing their family component by talking about these male-only spaces like the maskanis, you know, building on them. Also,
Mr. Jamal.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so.
Yes, yes.
Okay, in summary, what I'm saying is there is need to have a bottom-top kind of approach in this kind of conversation of including the youth and their role within the issue of security within Africa, and also to involve them in decision-making and also give an ear and not judge them from how they experience life and how they view life altogether. So as we can have one society in Africa that is productive and of resilient and passionate young people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jamal. I can see Mr. Kaguta is back online, and before I open the floor to 2 questions, I would like to hear from Mr. Kaguta. Mr. Kaguta, we commend the work that the EAC has been doing with youth in different initiatives, and specifically wanted to know what the EAC has been doing in recent years to promote youth participation in peace and security within the EAC member countries.
Hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes, you can go on.
Okay, thank you so much. To begin with, let me thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to participate in this initiative that you are launching today. Secondly, I also wish to thank you for for other endeavors that you have so far undertaken, and especially focusing on the issues of youth empowerment, and more so in the area of peace and security. On the side of EAC, I will just give some highlights because I did not prepare some kind of introductory remarks because I was on travel, but I've managed to save some few minutes to be with you. The EAC is empowered to do a lot, to have a lot of interaction and dialoguing and networking with the youth. And more so when you look at the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and Resolution 2250, all of them, EAC takes them concurrently, and implementing these 2 kinds of resolutions plus others that I have not mentioned require deep engagement with the youth, and the EAC is mandated to implement this. The treaty for establishment of the EAC, East African Community, provide for engagement of special groups, which also include the youth. The EAC has, for example, a policy, has got a youth policy that describes quite a number of things that the youth can do in engagement with the EAC. But specifically in the area of peace and security, we have developed some interventions and initiatives where the youth are going to be quite very much integrated and engaged. We have had a number of interactions with the EAC youth ambassadors, for example, who have participating in the areas of election observation, debates, trying to evaluate and engage the initiatives of the EAC in a number of areas where they can play a very big role. Today, the youth involvement in the EAC integration is very, very much needed than it was yesterday. We need the youth in a wide spectrum of areas of peace and security, in issues concerning the borders, the transnational arrangement initiatives, the border initiatives, and other peace and security interventions. Mention the early warning, mention the conflict prevention, management and resolution, mention in other integration objectives. The EAC, the youth is needed more than it was yesterday. So for us in the EAC, quite a lot has been done on the side of the youth in the EAC integration. But to restrict myself now on area of peace and security, since I did not prepare since I did not prepare on a kind of a statement to give, based on the youth policy, the EAC youth policy, and the other existing instruments, we have highlighted, we have underlined quite a number of areas that the youth will get participating, the youth will be participating in. And we have so far developed a strategic intervention where most of our youth ambassadors participated. We did it recently. We've also we have developed a framework that establishes the youth forum at the EAC level. And we are going to have a lot of interventions with the youth. So in summary, what I want to say is that the role of the youth in EAC is quite a lot. Talk of the small arms and light weapon trafficking, talk of the transnational organized crime, talk of the capacity building, talk of capacity building, governance, and early warning. All those areas require the intervention of youth. We just started quite recently under peace and security. Formerly, we had not engaged the youth closely, but with the passing of the youth policy and also the peace and security coming on board to take up the mandate that touch the youth, quite a lot is in the offing. For example, within this coming month of July, we have got an advocacy awareness for the youth on all the instruments of peace and security. And we have also, we are also going to have a training focusing on the youth, peace and security in the areas of living together and the promotion of good governance and other initiatives within the EAC. So that is what I can quickly summarize right now. In my conclusion, I want to once again thank you for the initiative you are having for the youth. And I encourage you, and I am fully in support. Me as an individual and the EAC in general, we are in full support of all the initiatives that will involve the youth, the gender, peace and security, and we are ready to interact with you more and more. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaguta, and please also thank the EAC for us, and we thank you so much for being part of this panel. I understand that there are some burning questions and comments from the participants, but I'm kindly going to ask you to please hold on to them, and we'll have a time after the next session for questions and comments. At this juncture, please allow me to invite, before inviting the next moderator for the next session, I want to thank our panelists for their insights they have given in this panel discussion. And I understand they will still be on the call, so if you have any questions, don't worry, they will be there to our panelists. And now let me invite Mrs. Stella, who is going to take us through the next session. Stella, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gisa, for running that session, and quite ably. There was quite a lot that was shared in that conversation, but I'm glad you were able to cover all the conversations. For all those of you who have questions, kindly write them in the chat room, and we'll make sure that we get some time for you to get answers to those questions. The next panel is going to be a panel of government speakers who are going to be helping us have the conversation on how governments can collaborate with young people in preventing and transforming conflicts towards peace and security. I have checked in the meeting room. We do not have Leonard Onyonyi, the peace and security expert from the EAC, but I'm going to kindly request Mr. Didicus Kaguta to please continue with us on this particular component. And then we also have Catherine Chegero, the National Coordinator, Kenya National Action Plan, State Department for Gender. Catherine Chegero, please get ready. We have Bwana Tixon Zunda, the Principal Secretary from the Prime Minister's Office for Policy, Parliamentary Affairs, Employment, Youth and Persons with Disability, Tanzania. And then we have Emil Digirie, Director of Political and Diplomatic Affairs, Ministry of EAC Affairs, Youth, Sports and Culture. And then we have Robert Mwesigwa, who's not present with us. And unfortunately, we are not going to have a representative in the panel from Rwanda, but he was supposed to be here representing the National Youth Council. Then we have Jacob Eyeru, the Chairman of Uganda National Youth Council, who are going to be joining me for this panel. Kindly unmute your microphones and get yourself ready for the conversation. Can I confirm if I have the Principal Secretary, Emil, in the room? Okay, then I'm going to then quickly invite Madam Chegero, if you have you in the room. Madam Chegero, present? Okay, if we don't have Madam Chegero in the room, then as we follow up, we can continue with the speakers in the room. Jacob, as a follow-up to the presentation that has been made by Mr. Kaguta, I'd be interested in finding out from you, from your experience in the National Youth Council in Uganda and the kind of collaboration that you have with the government of Uganda, and from what you have seen happening in the other parts of the region. What are some of the recommendations you could make on how government can collaborate with young people in preventing and transforming conflict? Jacob, karibu.
Can you hear me, Stella?
Very well.
Okay. I don't know. Can you hear any overlapping sounds?
No. We hear you loud and clear.
All right. Thank you, Stella. I'm really pressed for time because we have gone over the schedule, but I'm more than happy that we are proceeding in this manner. I think that governments have been doing what I would call paramilitary inclusion of young people, where if young people are not arraigned in military situations, they are not exactly very attached to government efforts. The effort of government has been largely around the challenge of what exactly is unpeaceful either gathering or what exactly is unpeaceful display of action by people. So it is necessary that we understand it in that way. I would love to hear first from a general sense what others think is a necessity of young people in terms of government efforts. In Uganda, our experience has actually been more like one government has undertaken initiatives under community policing to see how young people can be involved, but that didn't turn out well with the crime preventers scheme that the public began to see as a paramilitary organization for vested interest. So that's something that we could talk about more, and I look forward to that discussion.
Thank you very much for that. I'm made to understand that Mr. Onyonyi is trying to join from Kinshasa, but he's having some struggles with internet. And therefore, I'm kindly going to request Mr. Kaguta to graciously help us continue with this conversation and possibly represent his colleague on this panel. And Mr. Kaguta, the question I would be asking you is what are some of the quality activities that you have seen young people in the region engaging in to promote peace and security, and especially in preventing and transforming conflict, that you think you'd encourage the young people in this network to take up and probably expand?
Thank you, Madam. Actually, the just speaker who has just been speaking right now from Uganda, I think, has highlighted quite two important things. One is enrollment within the security sector. That is within the military, within the police, and within what I may call prisons or correctional services, and other sectors of security. Number two is also not only participating in security areas, but when you look at a government in a wider perspective, involvement of youth in every sector of government is quite important. And in this way, when we shall be curing the problem of unemployment, which unemployment has actually been the cardinal reason why most of our youth have been recruited into fundamentalist organizations. So if we can integrate them in all sectors of government, two, if we can widen on industrialization and infrastructure so that the youth do not have to only look at government, but there is quite a wider opportunity for them to get employment through different private NGO and private NGO and government. That one will ease the problem of unemployment because it has been identified as key. But also secondly, or thirdly, is the role of youth in raising awareness and mentoring their peers on the fundamentals of peace, stability, and governance within our society. Because this is very key, because some of our youth sometimes are lured into these organizations without knowing. Some begin as employment or job seekers, and in seeking for jobs, they end up being trafficked as labor, trafficked for labor. And in the end also, they end up either in fundamentalist organizations, being forcibly taken there. Others, they join willingly, but others are taken there unknowing that they find themselves just within. So these are the key areas where the youth can participate. And also in other initiatives like at the regional level, be part and parcel of our national early warning systems and the regional early warning systems. This helps so much in widening the knowledge of the youth on what is going on. So these and other perspectives that we are going to discuss today, I feel that they are key. But the role of the family unit remains also very important. We don't have to always look at the youth when they are already very old enough actually to be recruited into these wrong categories. But as families also, we have a role. So now the current youth can play a very big role in raising awareness through schools, through institutions, through any setup of youth at the national and regional level, so that we raise awareness. If the youth are fully informed on their role in government, on how to participate in government affairs, on how to channel their proposals into governance, into policy making institutions, so that they are incorporated, we shall start seeing a number of the youth issues being answered, so that we try to see a decreasing trend of the youth that have been always exploited to join wrong groups, be it criminal or fundamentalists. All of them are equally bad. Others actually participate into other forms of violence within certain countries. So all these surround the area of unemployment, low incomes, and also lack of awareness on how our governments operate. The moment they understand how governments operate, and also proactively push our governments to continue considering them as the youth also contribute to the governance of our countries. The moment the youth are incorporated in decision making, we shall start harmonizing and seeing some kind of equilibrium that will usher in peace, stability, and security within our countries and within our region. I submit.
Thank you very much, Kaguta, for such insightful proposals on how youth can be involved in peace and security. I hear you talking about raising awareness and mentoring peers. I hear you talking about being part of early warning systems, which is extremely critical if we are to prevent conflict, avoiding exploitation, and by ensuring that they're in gainful employment or in productive engagements within their societies, and also ensuring that young people actually take time to understand how governments operate, so that even as they're engaging with governments, they do not find themselves in situations where they cause conflicts where conflicts are not necessary. I'm going to open the floor a little just to allow one of our guests to make a comment from Rwanda. And Ndatimana, if you're still here, Christian, I know you're not speaking on your official capacity, but I think it would be interesting to hear from a National Youth Council of Rwanda perspective, how you people have collaborated with your government in many ways to promote peace in Rwanda. Ndatimana, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, here I'm representing the National Youth Council and the Ministry of Youth and Culture. And we're also interested in this topic and the role of this platform, which will help us to share our ideas. So going straight to your questions, the government of Rwanda is, just let me start with the youth. Here in Rwanda, the youth is a person who is aged between 16 and 30. So we
Ndatimana, we lost you there. Okay, while we wait for Ndatimana to get back on the call, allow me to give the floor again to Madam Chegero, who is joining us from Taita Taveta right now in Kenya, to just share with us her experience on how young people have collaborated with government in implementing programs to prevent and transform conflict, and specifically the perspective of young women's participation in matters of preventing and transforming conflict. Madam Chegero?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stella, and apologies for joining in late. Now, in Kenya, through the State Department for Gender, what we did is, while implementing Resolution 1325, we felt because the country doesn't have an action plan on Resolution 2250, and when we were drafting the first Kenya National Action Plan, we did not factor in the issues of youth involvement in issues of peace and security. So when we were drafting our second National Action Plan, that's going to run for a period of 5 years, that's 2020 to 2024, we ensured that issues of youth insecurity, Resolution 2250, were also incorporated in the document. And in so doing, we brought along youth organizations that are actively working on issues of peace and security across the country. And they were able to input activities that they are doing and indicators that we'll be able to measure. And for us to categorically say, if, for example, by end of the 5 years, we don't have a resolution on 2250, but as a country, we will be able to report on what we're doing on issues of inclusion of youth on peace and security. Now, focusing more on the prevention aspect, prevention indicators is just working closely with youth organizations on what can we do and what role can the youth play in terms of preventing violent extremism, preventing violence, especially now that we are going to the electioneering period. What are some of the activities that they can do? And we've actually seen a lot of amazing work that's been done in West Pokot, in Elgeyo Marakwet, in Mombasa, at the coast region, and in Nairobi, especially in the slum areas. And actually last week, we were drafting our first annual report on what have we done in respect to Resolution 1325 and 2250, and we'll be able to share that once it's completed. And it brings out the role of the youth in peace and security, and the amazing work that they're doing across the country. So we are also focusing on partnership, like I mentioned, because we don't have a specific resolution on 2250, is basically to also look at how do we bring on board not just young people, but also when you're talking about Resolution 1325, you have to bring in the aspect of young women in the peace and security sector. So focusing more on mentorship, on especially with the older generation, and just impacting knowledge on how the young women can be able to get mentors that will enable them to now implement on the ground from a point of knowledge. So we've seen women like Susan Owiro, Celine Korir, who have really been mentors to these young women. And courtesy of that, when we were having the International Women's day, and the State Department for Gender wanted to award a woman who's doing amazing work in issues of peace and security. We felt, why not award a young woman who's doing amazing work on peace and security, and a lady who's working in the slums and working on ending violent extremism and ending insecurity, called Rose Mbone, was awarded at that time. And so this is to just encourage more youth to come on board and to be able to see, you know, for the involvement to be recognized. You know, it's one thing when they're working the field, but then it's another thing when you recognize them and recognize them in such forums, then it becomes like, you know, what they're doing is quite amazing. Another thing is because the resolution 2250 doesn't have like a coordination mechanism the way resolution 1325 has. So we're using the Secretariat of the Kenya National Action Plan to see how we can also coordinate the young people so that they don't operate, you know, in limbo, but they use the structures that are already in place, even as we try and see if it is possible for us to have an action plan specifically for youth peace and security. So I submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chegero. I think even if you came in late, you made quite some critical contribution to the conversation, especially mentioning how we need to be able to borrow from the implementation of other instruments that probably had a better implementation mechanism to be able to shape up the way we shall be able to implement and push for the implementation of Resolution 2250, and even map out the role of young people in implementation of Resolution 1325, as we look at other instruments promoting peace and security and other frameworks that have been passed by governments. I also heard you mention a lot about young people participating in government-initiated activities and actually even being rewarded for exemplary performance. And I think that is definitely one of the ways that government can encourage young people to participate in their work. I don't know whether we have managed to get Ndatimana back in the room. It's unfortunate that he was actually sharing with us about Rwanda, but then he has been thrown out of the meeting. But we'll continue waiting. Let me open the floor for any critical questions, and I'm only going to give a few opportunities for critical questions or direct comments to the speeches that have just been made. If you have a question directly to someone who has spoken, please mention their name as you ask, or ask a general question, and then we shall determine who is going to respond to the question. I'll give the floor to Nicholas Lagat and Karagwa Rebecca, because I see only you two have raised up your hand, and then we'll close it there and maybe give another chance later in the program. Nicholas, the floor is yours. Keep it short and sweet. You are muted. Kindly unmute. We can't hear you, Nicholas, unfortunately. We cannot hear you. I do not know.
We have come together as a youth representative from the East African community. My question will go straight to the representative from the EAC on what appertains the activities and plans for, now there is a notion from the youths about the northern dominance, the Western dominance. We view so many other things in light with the systems that are in place. And many a times we get excluded, we feel excluded in most of the activities. You can imagine, assuming that Lagat today is 17 years old, and there are lots of government planning that are being undertaken today for the next financial year. And now that I'm not fully an adult of age by the government of the day, I will not be allowed to give input to some of the things that will directly affect me in the near future. So what exactly are the governments of the day doing to include children, young adults in making decisions which pertains to the future? Most of the youth are left aside, and that is why they're being misused, because they are not empowered, they are easily manipulated, and a lot of other things on queue with regards to religion, education, and some other systems that are in there. So I would want to know exactly what are the engagements and what is the approach? What is the criteria of selection for people or representation of organizations that are working in tandem with EAC directly. And what is their plans to scale out, to reach the grassroots? Because of course, there are a lot of things that are happening in various parts of the world. And
thank you, Lagat. Thank you, Lagat.
We need each and every time sharing of ideas and an implementation of what they put in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lagat. Your point is made. I think in the speeches that were made, there were a couple of ideas on the activities that are being done by government to engage young people that were mentioned. If you have proposals on how you think they can better engage children and begin preparing them and mentoring them so that they can be more active with as far as conflict prevention is concerned, it would be nice for you to actually provide some of those on the comment section. I also need to point out that we are preparing an East Africa Community East Africa Youth Peace Network. A network that is not going to be agonizing, but a network that is going to be organizing and ensuring that then we lead the process of promoting the prevention and transformation of conflict within the region. We are saying we want to take a different role. So we are not going to be complaining as victims. We are actually going to be looking at ways of negotiating spaces where we can be able to come in and influence. And I think every person who has spoken has actually welcomed young people to participate in those spaces. Karagwa, I had said you're going to take the floor next, but as you take the floor, I need to point out that there are a few representatives here who may not necessarily be from the East Africa community. We have people from West Africa, and I've seen a few from Southern Africa, and I've seen a representative from Somalia. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because I have seen questions in the comment section about why not too many people are mobilized from that region. As you have noticed, today is the day we are launching the East Africa Youth Peace Network, but eventually we are going to spread to the rest of the continent with this network. And we're just piloting our work in this region because there's already quite a lot of work that the East Africa community is doing, as you heard from Mr. Kaguta. And of course, that the recommendation already came from the youth of this region. So we are looking at ways of ensuring that then we expand this initiative to the rest of the continent. And the reason why we allowed other people to come into this conversation is because eventually we're going to be going Africa with our work as YouLead. And of course, we would want to expand the work of the Youth Peace Network. Karagwa, the floor is yours. Keep it short.
Thank you so much, Stella, and also thank you to every panelist and for speaking to us. So what I have to say in regard to peace and security for me still is about education, the kind of education. And I think that is a lot to change about our education in East Africa as a whole, but also and again, largely the aspect of colonialism. We have to decolonize a lot and also teach Africans that we are one. Because if you look at some of the challenges that we have, it's because we have conflict and differences based on our tribes, the borders that of course were drawn by the same colonialists and then religion, all those things. But what if we just focus on the fact that we are people? And this is not something you just wake up and, because we do it for a short time when you're already adults a bit, but what about we incorporate it in our education system, that we teach people to be one, to, I don't know. So I really think that there's a lot to change about education and incorporate stuff or things that point to peace and security. So that when we grow up as adults that are already aware that we have a duty to coexist and to live peacefully. So my call is to the representatives we have here to at least take this to a space, as you've said, where we can negotiate, but can we inform policy and make this message clearer so that people really get on board, and then we see what we can do to achieve this. Thank you, Stella, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and for such a quality proposal that we include this education in our education system, so that we are preparing young people very early to begin participating in prevention of conflict and prevention and transformation of conflict. Allow me, please. I know you still have questions, but allow me to go back to my speakers and allow them to give their closing statements, especially because you had. One of them saying that they're pressed for time, so that we can release them and go on to the next session. And I don't want us to keep our chief guest here for too long. because he happens to also be a very busy man who needs to leave this conversation at some point. So Jacob, you're going to take a minute, Jacob Beyeru, Chairman, National Youth Council Uganda, to make your closing statements, and then we are going to have Bwana Kaguta also making his closing statement so that we then close this panel in style. Jacob?
Thank you, Stella. I think in closing, I'm very welcoming of the idea that young people in East Africa can come together along peaceful lines. And I think that broadening the understanding of our peaceful necessity would help us go a long way in the effectiveness of our peaceful coexistence, but also in nurturing the community. Very many times along the borderlines, all over the community, we actually have challenges with border communities and how they coexist. Peace initiatives by young people that focus not just on what governments in East Africa look at as peace in terms of arms alone, but go as far as looking at coexistence and building bondages with community, persons, will go a long way in helping achieve a unified people and a one people-centered integration in East Africa. Finally, I would like to also say that intergovernmental bodies like the EAC should all have an initiative centered on peace that builds the capacity of young people to view peace and coexistence as a critical part of development. What we are currently pushing for is trade. What we're currently pushing for is human rights, but without the manifestation of coexistence, we might not achieve any of these things, and we might not see ourselves as equals. And so it's very important that we go the way of IGAD. It's very important that we go the way of the AU, and I'm very glad for the establishment of this Youth Peace Network for East Africa under the auspices of YouLead. So I look forward to what we can achieve, and I look forward to it being anchored at national level and helping become a platform for national interaction across the community on youth-led spaces for peace. I thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Bwana Kaguta, your checkout statement.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Once again, I wish to thank you for this cardinal initiative that you've started. And I just want to encourage you to keep the candle burning. This is the starting point, but I'm very hopeful that with this kind of launch, the future has no limit. And I wish to encourage the youth to continue interacting with the EAC in whichever way. We have got areas in which we can be contacted. For example, through the youth ambassadors, for example, for them, they already have direct contacts with us, but I call upon the youth not to hesitate should they encounter any challenging situation that they would wish to hear from the EAC and what EAC has in plan for them. As EAC, we continue advocating for youth involvement in all areas of life, be it social, economic, and political. And we continue encouraging the youth to increase their participation in political processes, peace building, and all socio-economic networks. We give support to increasing the youth involvement in conflict prevention and mediation efforts, both at national and regional level, while enhancing their protection in peace, conflict, and post-conflict situations. We should not only be looking at the elements of physical peace, but the overall human security remains important. And the component of governance remains key for us, the youth, to venture into. The moment we achieve the objectives of good governance agenda, then the rest will come in, because leadership and youth leadership and development, including youth development, is very key. I call upon the youth to participate actively so that we move together, both in EAC integration and in development of and advancement of the developmental objectives of our EAC partner states. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaguta, for those very encouraging statements. Indeed, you would be pleased to know that we actually have an EAC Youth Ambassador within the steering committee of this network. And we were careful to leave a slot for one of the EAC Youth Peace Ambassadors when you eventually set up the platform. And one commitment that I can already make out of this meeting, and possibly it's something we discussed early this year in our consultations, is that my colleague Kazeneza and myself will come through to you together with the steering committee at some point to just share with you, how we intend to collaborate with your program in ensuring that we are all working together to push this agenda of youth participation in peace and security, and especially prevention and transformation. We really, really appreciate your presence here and all the contribution that you've made. Jacob, we also appreciate you and all the contribution that you have made into this conversation, especially because we contacted you quite last minute, but you managed to honor our invitation. And all the other government representatives who were able to be here today, including Datimana, who fell off the call along the way as he was trying to respond to my question. But then this is not the last meeting we are having, and we'll have many opportunities to actually engage, and we'll be happy to organize some of those meetings. I actually see Solange Terrero in the meeting. Solange, do you want to make a closing statement on behalf of the government of Rwanda, since Christian dropped off? Solange? This network seems to be very elusive. Solange, can you hear me? Okay. But then we still send our appreciation to the government of Rwanda for sending in Solange and Christian Datimana for this conversation. I think at this point, I'd like to close that conversation and embark on the launch ceremony. I will introduce the chair of the East Africa Youth Peace Network, who is then going to proceed to introduce the rest of her steering committee, and then embark on giving us a breakdown of exactly what this network is about, what frameworks are guiding its engagements, and then eventually we will then have an official launch by our chief guest. Allow me to introduce to you Ms. Anne Maua Osamba, who is our chair of the East Africa Youth Peace Network, duly elected by the youth of East Africa in an election that we conducted in the month of May. She is currently chairing a steering committee of around 9 representatives, some of whom still need to be added. We managed to conduct the elections in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi. We are yet to get a representative from Tanzania, where we would want to recruit a little bit more before we hold the elections. And then we are similarly going to be holding elections in South Sudan. But at the moment, South Sudan is represented in the steering committee by one is Stephen Elias, who we co-opted from the YouLead network to just hold brief until we are able to hold an election in South Sudan. Madam Chair, the floor is yours. Please share with us what your network is all about and where you intend to.
Thank you so much, Stella. Thank you so much, East Africa, for giving this opportunity. Yes, my name is Rose Osamba, and it is such an honor to be present on this auspicious day, but also such an honor to have a female chair for this matter in the East African Youth Peace and Security. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, sir, all protocol observed, East Africa Peace and Security agenda is pegged on the total and meaningful inclusion of young people in the East African and IGAD region. Allow me to bring to you the members of my steering committee, and I will start by Gisa Robert. Gisa Robert is from IPeace organization in Rwanda. Gisa? And then we also have Mr. Robert Muhangi from RDP in Uganda. And we have East Jacket Nsinzimana from Yaga in Burundi. Then we also have Wani Stephen from ADNEX in South Sudan. And finally, we have Elias Odhiambo from the East African Community Youth Ambassadors Platform. So together with these steering committee members that you've entrusted us, we are hoping to have a very productive youth network, because we know youth peace and security network is going to be amazing. And also it's placed at the heart and center of the young people of East Africa. So without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity and give it to Mr. Elias Odhiambo, who is going to present to us a draft framework of engagement on how this network is therefore going to conduct its business. Then later on, I will come and present what we are aspiring to do for the 2 quarters that are remaining in this year. Mr. Elias Odhiambo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. With profound gratitude and humility. My name is Elias Odhiambo. As you've been told, I'm the East Africa Community Youth Ambassador from the Republic of Kenya. And as informed, I'm going to take you through the framework of engagement and functioning of the East Africa Youth Peace Network. Before I do so, it's proper that I quote one of our Pan-Africanist, the late Nelson Mandela, who said that it's the role of youth to position themselves, to be the script writers of their destiny and feature themselves as stars that shower the way towards a brighter future. I think it's on this background that we, the youth, we come up with this platform to at least not only be the scriptwriters of our own destiny in future, that is, but also be the future of our region. And based on this basis, we have come up with a framework that constitute as will be highlighted below. I think, Kaza, you can take me to the next slide. Our core mandate as the East African Community Youth Peace Network entails, one, to consolidate youth leadership in peace and security. As you all know, youth are as passionate to engage themselves in all manner of activities that are aimed and geared towards EAC objectives, but they don't have a platform. So through the EAYPN, we'll have a platform, and also we'll consolidate all these youth networks to come together in championing peace in the region. Another objective, the next slide is on the objectives of the network. Why are we here? One, we are going to provide a platform, as I note, and then after providing a platform, we are going to consolidate various opportunities for all these youth organizations that are geared towards peace initiative, and then lastly, mobilize resources to ensure that the platforms that exist in the regional peace network are facilitated to conduct their missions and so on and so forth. So what are the structures of the network, one may ask? How do you become a member of the platform? To be a member of the platform, as you are all aware, most of the participants are either YouLead alumni or members of various East Africa community youth organs. So to be a member, by virtue of being an alumni, you automatically be a member of the network. By being a representative of the EAC Youth Platform Network, you will automatically be a member. And then we'll also have one of the AU Youth Peace Ambassador for East Africa. As you all know, East African community has a representative at the AU for peace issues. So that youth ambassador will that AU Youth Peace Ambassador for East Africa will automatically be a member of the East African platform. And then we'll also have representative organizations with strategic interest on youth peace networks. And also we'll have National Youth Council representatives from each region. And then we'll, in the framework, we'll have steering committees. So how do we get these committees? As highlighted by Stella earlier, we'll have one EAC Youth Ambassador who will represent the interest of EAC Youth Ambassadors across the region. We'll have 6 members representing each EAC member state as elected by the country membership. As you have been informed, there have been elections all through, say for Tanzania. We'll have those elections shall always be done yearly to get the legitimate representative from each region. And then we'll also have the AU Youth Peace Ambassador for East Africa. And then we'll have one YouLead Secretariat representative ex officio. As you are all aware, YouLead has a partnership agreement with the EAC in championing youth initiatives in the region. So it's only fair and just that we have one representative from Secretariat to facilitate the activities, or rather support the steering committee in conducting its functions. So what then are the functions of the steering committee of Youth Peace Network? One of the key mandates of the steering committee will be to oversee the activities of the network. As I'll highlight here, the network will always meet yearly to come up with the objectives and various initiatives that that will inform their yearly activities. So the steering committee will oversee such activities, and then they'll also convene the meeting in consultation with the Secretariat, and then also advise on regional peace and security priorities with youth at the center stage. To highlight further, we'll have a Secretariat which shall be permanently at MSCDC, which, as you know, is the home of YouLead Africa, based in Arusha. And some of the key functions of the Secretariat shall include, but not limited to, being the central repository for all the business of the network. And then it will also be the custodian of all the instruments constituting the network. The Secretariat at YouLead will all support the work, which have highlighted its composition. And then it will also facilitate the activities of the network where funds are available. The Secretariat shall help in mobilization of resources that will help facilitate activities that the steering committee will come up with after conducting its annually or monthly meetings. And then how will the network be coordinated? The coordination of the network per se. The network shall be coordinated mainly through meetings. As I indicated, we shall be having monthly meetings, which shall be held last Thursday of the month. And suppose there are no meetings, there are no monthly meetings, it will be proper and fair that the steering committee, through the Secretariat, issue emails to members as to why, or rather pass communications on why there's no meeting, or on any other information as they may deem fit. And then the Secretariat, the Secretariat and committee shall also have annual general meetings at the East Africa Youth Leadership Summit on the Summit Day of Peace, covering various initiatives on youth. As you all know, YouLead is always holding yearly summit, bringing together all manner of youth networks to one place, that is Arusha, at the EAC Secretariat in Arusha, sorry. And then during that moment, we'll use that opportunity to meet members and also highlight key objectives, key annual reports on various activities that we have undertaken. And then during the meeting also, we'll agree on the following year's priorities. I think when the summit happens, as we have all members present, we'll have an opportunity to gather information from all youth present on what could be the key mandate for the following years, what could be the key objectives of the following years, or what could be the priorities for the following years for our action. And then we also focus to have joint activities. Other than having our own activities as a network, we intend to cooperate and have partnership with various youth peace networks, be it globally or even regionally. So we'll use this opportunity to form partnership with various organizations and even various non-governmental organizations, security organs, to come up with various activities aimed or geared towards peace, maintaining peace vision, with with youth at the center in such activities. And then one of the key priorities of the network includes, and I can state in prose, one will have to establish the network, as I've said, and then advocate for implementation of instruments which will be the bridge which we'll use to initiate our activities, and also develop an advocacy plan on online hate and online harm. As you know, youth tend to use social media, let's say in a wrong way, to trigger violence or even hate amongst their own youth, and then they end up so to say spread violence and hatred through social media. So I think initiatives or activities geared towards stopping that through the social media will be of importance. So how then will we solve disputes in case there's any during our conduct or actions as a network? In our framework, we have noted that all disputes that may arise from the network shall first be solved amicably between the relevant parties, and the matter shall be considered permanently closed. As a peace network, or rather peace organization, youth peace organization, I think the primary efforts in dispute resolution should be center stage on other alternative dispute mechanisms, like negotiation amongst the parties with whom have differences, and then also we can arbitrate if need be. And then in an event of a stalemate or the resolution of such dispute, yes.
We are running out of time. As you wind up, please.
Yes. I think just to make a summary of everything. The objective of the network, as highlighted, will be to bring up a platform, and that platform shall facilitate and get us resources to facilitate peace network, peace initiatives. And then the framework, as highlighted, includes representative of each partner state, and then representatives of crucial youth organizations in the region. I think that marks the end of my presentation, Madam Chair. Thank you for hearing and listening. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Elias, for that elaborate engagement framework, and also for highlighting some of the key objectives that the network is looking forward to do or is aspiring to do. And without much further ado, I will go straight to the action plan. So I will ask the YouLead team to project for me the action plan. Yeah, the screen is coming, and even as we're waiting for the projection of the action plan, just to say, it is one thing to have all these regional or international, even local resolutions, but it's a whole total another thing to just, localize these resolutions. Please go to the next slide. Thank you. So the main goal really for this youth network is mainstreaming the peace and security agenda across the East African region. And our key objectives are those instruments that you can see on the screen, which is localization of the UN security resolution. And this is not limited to just the localization of these resolutions, but rather all the things that, are intended with youth peace and security as far as East African is concerned. But the other activities then is also amplifying the youth voices of young people working within the EAC. And I must commend Madam Catherine Chegero for the efforts as a government to just appreciate the young people who have done some of this work. And please go to the next slide. And this is because we are doing quite a lot of work on YPF and WPF, but sometimes the works go undocumented. And in some of the interventions that we're really looking at is advocating for the implementation of youth participation in peace and security. And I must say, for us to succeed on the implementation of these resolutions, then we need to put young people at the center of the processes, but also see young people as partners in peace and security processes. And how these interventions will look like, we're looking at developing advocacy strategies and also organizing training on sensitization, but also localization of UN Resolution 1325, 2250, 2535, but also mobilizing the young people and training them on how best they can actually localize this to their local context, whether it's Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, or Uganda. But in essence, also document the work that they are doing, and also organize for reflective meeting. What this one helps us with is so that we can encourage what you call peer-to-peer learning, but also making comparative analysis between these countries in terms of how they've been able to localize the resolution. Please go to the next slide. So we are also going to look at youth participation in electoral processes. Like I had earlier said, that it's not only on the security instruments where we are saying we call for participation for young people who would like to be election observers. We're also looking at training young people on election observation, of course, through the partnership and the goodwill that we already have with the EAC. On how they can go for election mission and just try to learn a few things here and there, especially on the role of youth in electoral processes. Please go to the next slide. The other thing also is about the exchange programs on peace, and this is definitely for learning purposes and for documenting best practices and case studies. And here we're looking at selecting organizations who have been doing exemplary well in works of prevention and transformation of conflict in their areas, but also just roll out an exchange visit, and then have one report that will compile the entire work of the region. Please go to the next slide. We also looking at what Elias had already started to highlight. As we head toward election, we have realized that the internet is very polarized. So how do we use social media, for progressive development, social media for peace building and security, so that we have what you call online peace ambassadors, or if you may like, online digital citizens. So here we're looking at developing advocacy plans on hate speech, but also developing advocacy plans on digital rights and digital literacy program, where we are saying, how do we become peaceful online digital citizens? And we're looking at training young people on how they can flag online hate and cyber.
And you're muted, please unmute.
Flag of extremist content. Please go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So the last thing that we are looking at doing is the Youth Summit, which is an annual event. And so the theme for the Peace Day will be then youth participation in conflict prevention as a proactive measure to maintaining peace and security. And we have sub-thematic areas like youth and government in collaboration for conflict prevention, I believe, which is what the government panelists was talking about. But also we are looking at a very key and critical component of youth and early warning systems, because the EWA system are very critical to the agenda of peace and security. And then also the youth leadership in preventing violent extremism. And here potentially we are looking at even reframing and recontextualizing the space of violent extremism, because we know the shifts are trending, and the currents are also trending. And our key target group, really, we're looking at having 10,000 young people mobilized for this campaign across the region, but also 60 YPS champions trained. These two resolutions. But also we're looking at 60 young people trained on conflict prevention, which is subject to change depending on the demand and also, I think, availability of resources. The next slide. So the expected outcome really will be meaningful participation and engagement of young people in EAYPS processes across the EAC, and also documentation of young people's work on YPS, including best practices. I know some governments have already started doing that because some governments have availed reporting templates, but we want to make sure as we are documenting the young people's work, then we're able to reach out to the grassroots young people who sometimes may not get, the advantage of getting their work profiled. So also looking at outcomes such as train YPS champions working with peace building institution in conflict prevention, but lastly then promotion of cohesion and peace in the EAC region, and this is very critical for the region. Next slide. I believe this was sort of the last slide, right? Next slide. Do you have another? Okay. So this then looks like it's the last slide. That is what the network is really looking forward to do, and this is our aspiration. And we are looking forward to participation and collaboration from you partners who are invited today, because peace is a collective responsibility and we cannot do it alone. Thank you so much, and I rest my case and make my submission, and I give the meeting back to you, Ms. Stella Adara.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for such an elaborate presentation of our action plan. I have been seeing the reactions from the meeting room. I see comments that the action plan is quite rich, so I think we did a good job in thinking through some of the activities we want to engage in. I have seen comments from people who are also adding value, like Harun Modena, who's recommending that we promote cross-border learning, exchange, experience sharing, and knowledge transfer. And he says this is crucial for youth leaders in the peace sector. I think we will find ways of incorporating that into our action plan. We are getting quite some positive comments about that action plan. So I think we are on course. I will not add another word into this conversation. I think with immediate effect, I'm going to invite our chief guest who's going to officially launch our network, and also, give us an indication of his view after listening to all that we have talked about today. His view of whether we are on course, whether we look like we are going to succeed, and also how he sees our work plugging into the AU agenda on peace and security, silencing the guns, and implementation of all the instruments that our countries have become party to and have committed themselves to implement in prevention of conflict. Help me welcome His Excellency Ambassador Fred Gateretse, who's going to officially launch the network and of course make his speech. Ambassador Gateretse, Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Ambassador Gateretse, and thank you so much, Your Excellency, for staying with us throughout this session. We are absolutely honored.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. Let me start by saying that, first and foremost, I'm a proud East African myself. So I did not hesitate a second to kind of join you. The other point I would like to make is that I think about 2 years ago, I was still a youth, but I think that I've passed that age and now I've gone on the other side. Well, first of all, I'm so excited about this EAC Peace Network because the timing of it is really great. First and foremost, I think that we are facing many challenges with regards to peace and in our region, and we need all hands on deck. We're faced with terrorism, we're faced with contested elections, we're faced with the COVID pandemic, its impact on our economies, and what that will mean actually it will also affect peace and security in some ways. So one of the messages that I would like to convey to you is that I want you to be agents of peace. And I've heard about early warning a lot being discussed here. And I would like to say that early warning has never been the problem. It is early response which has always been the challenge. And what we want to invite you to do is to see how you can work on the response part, be active and try to come up with solutions. We all see when an election is coming, we all see the level of intolerance. We all see the hate speech. I just saw in your work plan, and I'm very excited about the work plan that you will have to address hate speech on social media. So come up with some concrete steps on how to get our governments really to move and to really truly respond to the signs and challenges that we have. So be the agents of peace. The second thing that I would like to highlight to you is that have a clear agenda. Have a very clear agenda, and just having righteous anger or passion is not enough to affect change. You cannot affect change if you're not having a clear agenda and also organizing yourselves, because without being well organized, you cannot deliver on anything. I would like to highlight that, for example, we know that there's going to be elections next year in Kenya, and it will be good if you could come up, for example, with a specific plan with regards to Kenya on how you can assist in making sure that there is no violence or that hate speech is not there. The third point that I would like to highlight is you need to get to know each other. I'm often surprised at how little the youth of the East African community know little about the countries that they come from. It is interesting to me that how sometimes very little is known, for example, about the youth in South Sudan or the youth in Burundi. Get to know each other, get to know what each other is doing. I think it's extremely important. I think this network will actually contribute to that. The other point that I would like to highlight, I know you've been on this call for a long time, so I will not stay too long, is the need to get better coordinated. I know everybody talks about coordination, but no one wants to be coordinated. But truly, if you're not well coordinated, you will not be able to deliver on what you're trying to achieve. So be agents of peace, get out there, get to know each other, work together, plan, organize, and get coordinated. I would like to sum up by saying that the truth is we're all interlinked. What happens in Rwanda matters. What happens in Uganda matters because it affects all of us. What happens in Burundi matters because it affects all of us. And one of the things that I would like for you to encourage you to do is really to encourage actually our governments to work together, really to have free movements of people and goods, as we have really been, this is part of the treaties which were signed. I know that there is always issues of politics, but when it comes to the people-to-people exchanges, we need to do something about that. I would like to see more Tanzanians coming into my country. I would like to see Kenyans, South Sudanese, and hopefully soon the DR Congo as well will be joining the East African community. So it is extremely important that we encourage our governments really to facilitate the free movement of people and goods, COVID notwithstanding. And I think that this is something that actually you can work on and really assist us in the future. Other than that, I would like to just say that at the African Union, we use the principle of subsidiarity, and we very much support the work of the East African community. And I saw Didicus was talking a lot about the work that they are doing. But right now, the people want to see change in their daily lives. We can no longer just be talking about theories and frameworks. Those, we have them. What we want to see is we want to be able to see an improvement in governance, an improvement in being able to prevent conflicts, and really and to see truly the youth being at the table. Let me conclude by saying this. No one will invite you at the table if you don't bring yourself to the table. Everybody talks about youth and women, but if you look until today, we're still struggling actually to get that, to have that. For example, I would like to see every time that there is a mediation effort, I would like to see one of you being part of it, being the youth representing the youth of the region. We would like to see also, I think I heard about the election observer mission. We would like to see a quota for the youth actually as part of the election observer missions that are there. So you should seek for a quota so that in the election observer mission that you're always represented. So it is on that note that I would like to really conclude. And thank you so very much for inviting me. And I look forward to continue working with you in any way possible. And know that your organization is there to support you. And I wish you best luck. And I look forward to rolling out your action plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gateretse. We could never have finished this conversation in a better mood than you have brought us right now. We highly appreciate the insights that you have given us and the recommendations you have made will definitely find their way into our work. We definitely will provide feedback to you on how we intend to incorporate them and some of the support that we may be needing from your office in due course. We are excited about the fact that you also identify with youth, and therefore we are encouraged by the idea that we are actually working with people who understand our struggle. As the good book says that we also got a high priest who understands the struggles we have gone through. So you also do understand, where we stand and some of the things that we are dealing with right now. Indeed, you have made some very powerful recommendations, and I believe you are also saying that our network is officially launched. Excellent. So then with that, I'm going to invite, I saw someone asking in the comment section who the representative for Uganda is, and they wanted to know whether they have someone who can coordinate them in Uganda. I'm going to invite Robert Muhangi, who is the representative for Uganda in the steering committee, and he's going to take us through the vote of thanks to appreciate everyone who put in some good work or their time and resources in getting this event to be a success. Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stella, and everyone who has spoken. Robert Muhanga, my name, the Executive Director of RDP Uganda. Very humbled to be part of this very inspiring committee and the participants that are here. As a committee, we are really very, very grateful that you honored our invitation. Most importantly, our guests, David Onen from the East African community. We have Leonard from East African community. We have our first who gave us the welcome remarks from MSTCDC, Mama. We are very grateful, thank you. But also for the support you are giving us, the East African community and MSTCDC. And in the interest of time, I want to thank all officials from various governments, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Uganda, who have been able to attend this launch, the representative of the National Youth Councils from different governments. I also want to thank, on behalf of the committee, the ministries of the youth affairs from different governments that have collaborated with us to be able to attend this launch. I want also to thank the private sector foundation that is willing to collaborate with us to push our agenda forward. I've seen the Khan Foundation members also on board. Heads of various civil society organizations. I've seen Dr. Warike from Africa Leadership Institute. I've seen Robert from Uganda Human Rights Initiative, and many others. We are very, very appreciative. And I also want to thank members from other countries outside East Africa. I did hear Stella mention about Nigeria, Somalia, but we have also an ambassador from Republic of Zambia who is with us. Godwin is with us on this platform. Thank you so much for joining. Like Stella said, we started as East Africa, but we are going to spread further as we implement our framework that has been presented to you. I can't, in the interest of time, I may not thank all of you, but in all of you, you are most welcome. And I also want to thank our dear participants who have been online. You've submitted some wonderful recommendations. You've submitted some good suggestions. And as a steering committee, we are really very glad, and we indeed commit to put all your recommendations in practice. But remember, this can only be possible with your support and the support of our governments and the support of East African community, EU. Our dear guest, I like this comment. No one will invite you to the table unless you bring yourself to the table. And we are coming to the EU table very soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. May God bless all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robert, for that. And with that, I think the guests are free to leave. We thank you so much for sticking with us throughout this conversation. This is just the start of the network. There's more to come, and there'll be plenty more conversations where we'll be able to talk deeply about the kind of work that we intend to do. Beatrice, we're happy to watch a video as we send our guests home.
Ivan, as the head of the Leadership and Governance Academy at TCBC, and as the YouLead Program Director, you are also offering leadership for this Youth Governance Architecture study. We'd like to find out from you why this study is important, not just for TCBC, but for the region.
First of all, the study addresses the evidence gap that exists on youth programming. There is a lot that many players are trying to do for the young people and with the young people, but we need to update the status of affairs of the young people. What do the young people want to see more in their space, and what areas do they need support more? And so this research is an effort to collect data, evidence, to inform what the young people really aspire for, and for players like government, civil society, and development partners to program on the basis of such evidence in order to be responsive to the current needs of the young people in the region.
We used the qualitative method, and the reason we did that was because we wanted youth voices to be at the forefront, but also we wanted to further interrogate the enabling environment for youth participation, not based on general assumptions, which would be presented by probably a quantitative study, but to have in-depth understanding of the factors that are affecting or enabling youth to participate in governance and leadership at the AC level.
I believe that we are still trapped into a narrative seeing young people as this homogeneous group, without realizing that there is a massive difference of circumstances from 18 to 35, and then all these socioeconomic circumstances. But then when we take a step back and think of young women, we know that patriarchy negatively affects their participation at private and public life. As such, when we want to investigate to which extent the environment is enabling youth participation, we need also to focus specifically on young women participation. Young women participation is this big, different group. Let's take, for example, young women with disabilities. Which type and form of disabilities? What type of socio-economic challenges and circumstances affect them? What's their level of education? And many other aspects from rural to urban, and also the way the digital divide affects them. Starting from this kind of analysis, we have then realized that it was extremely important not just to investigate youth participation, but even more young women participation from an inclusive perspective, which means that we have focused as well on young people with disabilities.
The research addresses the programming needs of a cluster and set of players. To begin with, the youth themselves. They need a space and a process through which they can express their own needs, aspirations, and what they want to see working on, and whoever wants to support them, where they should put the support. 2, government policymakers at all levels, from national youth councils to members of parliament that represent young people, but also policymakers in the institutions of government, such as national youth councils and ministries responsible for taking care of the needs of the young people. And lastly, the development partners who are supporting government efforts and also in some way supporting young people's efforts. They need to know through this research for the next 3, 4 years, 5 years, what should we prioritize in order to be in solidarity with the young people and address their identified needs.
The opportunity that we find in the region is that there is some good level of political will, which is represented by, for instance, the appointment of youthful ministers at cabinet levels. It's represented by the existing laws and policies that enable youth to be represented at different levels. And at least at the AC level, you have the youth policy, which also gives a platform for the youth to participate in EAC integration processes. Then we also have the other opportunity of representation, which we believe can be leveraged on to be able to influence policy if there is coordination between different youth groups.
Conducting such a study, which basis is indeed inclusivity, was not easy, because inevitably we know that the 6 countries of our consideration, but more generally the continent, is affected by an evident digital divide, which means that conducting and trying an outreach to the most vulnerable was not easy. We tried with the expedient of having a cross-sectoral investigation through focus group in each country of our interest. And although it was very interesting of having the engagement with different stakeholders, yet it was a little bit challenging in terms of investigating, collaborating, exchanging with, for example, young people with disabilities, but also different young women groups.
So with the existing frameworks for youth participation in leadership and contribution to the governance of this continent, what is this unique thing we should be looking forward to from this study?
The frameworks are in place, guiding what young people are, who they are, what their needs are, and what governments and other players could do to address these needs. But the frameworks lack a life. Therefore, this study goes a step further. It studies the voices, the needs, and the practice on how young people are being engaged, and addresses the gap of the distance between the frameworks and the needs of young people. If you like, this study moves the frameworks from policies to results, and this is the addition or the value add that the study brings to the very many wonderful frameworks that already exist at national level, regional level, and continental level.
MC Benny.
Come on, East Africa.
Ha.
This a party.
Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaje pamoja.
From country to country, yeah. We gotta work together. We are leaders now. Aiming high for the better. Together. To make our nations greater. While sharing to the power. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people with a big